Hi, I'm going to do a real quick video to show how to set up a basic Jardum system using off-the-shelf harnesses, a 700 and a PDM. This is ideal for doing prototypes or if you have a little bit smaller volume. Using the off-the-shelf harnesses is a really good option. Once you get this all established, having a custom harness that fits exactly to your application is usually the best bet, but this will get you up and running quickly. So I've got a 700 and a PDM. I have the M2 black universal harness. This will go into the 700, 1100, 1200, and a PV780. It's got a bunch of IO all brought out to the end, but we're only going to care about a little bit of that right now. On the PDM, we've got our standard harness that has around 16 feet or more of wire for each one of the outputs. It's got a pink and black intended for a fuel sender that run in and will feed to the display. And then you have your battery cables. On your positive side, before you hook that to battery, you're going to want to have a fuse in line of 70 amps. That will take care of all the fusing of all the loads that the PDM will be driving. So you're going to want to put something like that in line with your battery. So we've got this harness that is a 4-pin Deutsch, and on the other end you have pink, which is our ignition, red, which is our VBAT, and black, which is our battery ground. And then in line you have a fuse right there, which will handle all of your dash components. This 4-pin, we're going to plug directly into the 4-pin on the display harness, and it will use that power to daisy chain to other devices, and we'll cover that here in a moment. Now for CAN, any of these 3-pin connectors on any of the harnesses are all CAN 1, and they can be connected in whatever order or whatever arrangement you want to. So yellow in most of the harnesses is CAN high, and green is CAN low. So for this one, I'm just going to plug in the 3-pin to a 3-pin, and there we have our CAN connection to the PDM. Now for accessories, there's a lot of different accessories that you can plug in to the system. Here is a GPS cable. So on this one, go ahead and move this out of the way. On the GPS cable, he has 4-pin Deutsches as well as the 3-pin Deutsches. The color of the wires might be a little bit different, but it's okay. They're still pinned the same to connect directly up to these guys. So I can come in here and put my 4-pin on my GPS harness into my 4-pin on the display harness. That is spliced in with the incoming power. Then I'm going to take my 3-pin and I'm going to plug that in there. That gives me my CAN. And then on the other side of my harness, I've got a 4-pin that I plug into the GPS puck. And that guy now has power and CAN. We have other accessories like the VDC. This will allow you to control the user interface with these buttons. The harness for this guy is very similar, but slightly different from the GPS harness. So this is going to give it ignition as opposed to battery power. But we're going to do the same thing. We're going to connect the 4-pin into the 4-pin on the GPS and a 3-pin to the 3-pin on the GPS. And the other end of this will go into the encoder. Now we also have a extender. This just extends the CAN and power for any of the accessories that require just those 2 connections. Then you can also use that for things like the stereo remote. So here I've got all of my dash. I've got my GPS, I've got my remote, I've got my display hooked up. I'm going to take this CAN wire and connect it back to my PDM. On this PDM, he can connect to another PDM. So if I had another one out here, I would just merely plug it in to his harness, and then now I've got another PDM all hooked up. With a CAN network, you're going to want to have 2 terminations. The terminations are 120 ohm resistors. One on the display side, one on the farthest side away from the display. And a lot of times you don't actually need the second resistor. It'll all work just fine without it. or you might have termination in one of your other devices or like the engine loom. So in the cases where you do need to add termination, on the final 3-pin connector on my network, I'm going to plug in one of these Deutsch 120 ohm terminators in there. And then that will now give me termination on both ends. All of my CAN connections are connected to each other. Doesn't matter the order that they happen.